my wrongs unless I write them down for real. Thing and Drake just stand for do right and kill everything. I gotta dead a lot of shit just to live like this. He writes my wrongs, I write till I fight my God. When you know, leaving nerve. Wanna shoot me down, it can't be love, so I'm charged up. So I'm charged up. Can we get it how we used to get it, like when Top had the red charger? Wow, I'm honored that you think it's a stage.
Telling the story of what Drake did to Baby Keem's mom and the blonde woman, how he tortured them, experimented on their bodies, and covered it up with explosions, numbers, and the entire Six God aesthetic. When I found out about the recent back and forth, I went digging through both catalogs to figure out where the beef and the family ties actually started, specifically where Keem's mom enters the picture. As I went through Charged Up, I realized this song is one of the most detailed records in Drake's entire catalog, pointing straight at that situation. Then I remembered, Charged Up came before Back to Back, during the Meek Mill beef. That confused me enough that I went back to Back to Back, and I ended up at a conclusion that I couldn't shake. Kendrick had to write this. And if he wrote that, there had to be something in Kendrick's own catalog that trolled the entire Meek Mill beef. Something that mirrors Back to Back and Charged Up from the other side. After digging into Kendrick's work, the most detailed back-to-back troll records are the Wild Freestyle and the layers embedded in Charged Up itself. Let's walk through all of it. The Scream, Tuscan Leather, and Why I'm Certain Kendrick wrote this. I know Kendrick Lamar wrote Charged Up for Drake because the beat itself is coded to the scream of Baby Keem's mom. What happened to him?
Terrible things. The cat is out the bag, I'm not your safe, you hooked. This the same flow that put the rap game on the crush. Okay, the flow starting to feel familiar, don't it? Back to back, how did you get wrecked? Let's get back to that for the record. I'm getting 20 million off the record just to off this record. Must I remind you that Jimmy got 20 million on him? Tell Flex to drop a bomb on this shit. So many bombs. Need DJ Clue to drop a bomb on it. The message, bad to bed like I'm on the cover of Lethal Weapon. The cat is out the bag, I'm not your savior.
In reverse. That reverse scream first surfaces in Drake's Tuscan Leather on Nothing Was the Same.
Yeah, you know, Charged Up was a thing that, you know, I was just seeing if it was real. I was just seeing if it was, because, you know, you never know how calculated someone's plan is. Maybe
Life is cold, and your favorite rapper is a demon in the flesh.
Back home smoking legal. I got more slaps than a Beatles.
You would hear your favorite rapper say something like that. More slaps than the Beatles. And be like, it's just a bar. Until you listen to the tone, emphasis, and the whisper he's using. Back home, smoking legal.
Back home smoking legal.
I got more slaps than the Beatles.
I got more slaps than the Beatles.
Then watch this interview and realize the devil is alive.
I was with Serena at the time,
That's why I never asked for
and we've been talking a lot about her and Sharapova going back and forth over the years. And she had made this comment to me, and she was like, "Well, look, if you're gonna go again, you know, she's like, that beat that's on her next."
We do change you like a American slave. That's my bitch. Beat the system with chains and
Finish it.
real.
She's a top competitor.
Right.
So she was like, you gotta finish it. Like, I'm talking about done, over. And it's gotta be something that everyone that he's with and him has to hear.
Can't ignore it, right?
You can't do some it's just for the moment and then it goes away.
Yeah.
Should embrace it, this could be one of our realest moments. Okay, the flow starting to feel familiar.
They kill a couple rappers, but they did it themselves. Everybody's suicidal, they didn't even need my help.
And then it goes away. Yeah. She kind of put this battery in my back, funny enough. And then at the time, just, you know, again, timing.
You lied about the only artist that can offer you some help. Fuck a rap battle. This a long life battle with yourself.
And that you think this is staged. Wow. Back to back, acting baby. I did another one. They still ain't did shit about the other ones.
I'm trying to raise the bar, and we trying to jump and get it.
Wow. Eastside Johnny was able to tell me to get my bars up. Stupid. Wow. Johnny don't want to go to school, no.
He sang about peace but lived in pieces. He became a global icon of love and harmony while hiding a violent, broken past. John Lennon, the man behind Imagine, the face of the peace movement.
Throw the snake off the ark, full of sharks, here, take it.
But what if I told you he once admitted to hitting women? Not a rumor, not a tabloid story. His own words.
Too from I'm ready to show you something more. 96, 97, very important, very important.
I was a hitter, he confessed in a 1980 interview.
Johnny wanted me to have to take a big cut.
Here to debate anyone about her death. Use your logic. If you believe everything is sweet and safe, nothing I say will move you. But the evidence is in the sound itself. Kendrick also sampled a similar reverse scream in the Control verse before Drake even dropped Nothing Was the Same. And Kendrick wrote Big Sean's verse on Control too. That entire song is a coded narrative about Baby Keem's mom's situation, constructed before Drake put his reverse version on a major label release. So when you hear Charged Up, you are not just hearing a beat. You are hearing Kendrick's pen layered over a sound bed built from her screams, flipped into mood music for a fake Drake versus Meek storyline. The beat is the confession before the bars even start. Why it's called Charged Up: Captivity, Experiments, and the Triple Moon. The title is not about hype. The title is not about energy or excitement. Charged Up points directly to Baby Keem's mom being held captive by Drake. She's being tortured with bodywork procedures. She's combined with and stitched to a blonde woman. During that captivity, Drake runs experiments on her body parts. And one of those experiments involves using her DNA to make a charger, a literal bio-power source capable of generating light.
We're back in action.
Anyway, saw you last night but did it wrong.
Don't just grab any internet. I actually looked at the data. D-Fiber, data speeds that are actually consistent, 99.9% reliability, meaning no random outages when you're on a call. Their customer service picks up the phone and helps out. They literally win awards for all. So yeah, make this fun for your D-Fiber. Learn more at fiber.com.
Diagnosed with Crohn's disease and struggling with your symptoms, it's not too soon to talk to your doctor about Entyvio for moderate to severe Crohn's and learn about the results you need, including rapid symptom relief and long-term remission. Entyvio is the only gut-focused treatment for Crohn's that helps block inflammation in the gut and works right where you need it. Infusion and serious allergic reactions can happen during or after treatment. Entyvio may increase risk of liver problems and serious infection. Although unlikely, PML, a rare brain infection that can result in death, cannot be ruled out. Your doctor may test for TB. Tell your doctor if you are prone to or have an infection, sores, or flu-like symptoms. Learn more about the only treatment for Crohn's that works right where you need it. And ask your doctor about gut-focused Entyvio, including the Entyvio pen.
Gut-focused Entyvio. Only 60 seconds left.
Hey, baby.
Birth and past are tainted.
Okay, they won't pay, so they blame it on
The way
sick.
that shit moving is just unforgiving. Let's get it. Shit. We better.
My soul need a fucking babysitter. I did 8 years of failing plus a
It's like real casino, my nigga. Barely have parents. I tell that ain't TV. That's really
Okay.
got a co-sign from K-Dash.
That's why Kobe's helicopter had a camouflaged USB component. That's why Drake is obsessed with Millie Bobby Brown and the Stranger Things kid experiment electricity aesthetic. That's why the charged up concept lives in his catalog as something deeper than bravado. Drake wanted to turn Baby Keem's mom and the blonde girl into light because he was furious about Kendrick's poetic justice visuals. Those opening 3 moons in poetic justice symbolize the triple moon: maiden, mother, crone. This is a sacred feminine symbol representing the 3 phases of womanhood in the lunar cycle, rooted in Wiccan and pagan traditions. The waxing moon is the maiden, youth, new beginnings, purity, potential. The full moon is the mother, fertility, nurturing, life at its peak. The waning moon is the crone, wisdom, completion, sacred endings. Kendrick was dry snitching on Drake's predatory behavior at after parties, drugging minors, destroying women's fertility so there'd be no pregnancies.
They say shit, but I'm fat, I'm shouting, screaming, Annie, are you okay? Annie, are you okay? All right.
We'll be coming in 30 seconds. Stay strong.
I really hope you play this, cause old girl, you test my patience.
I need it. I'm gonna start getting. Life goes on. I need all my babies.
Responded by trolling the big 3. Publicly, Kendrick, Drake, Cole as a fake holy trinity.
To see who can transcend generations, much like Jay did, or much like Wayne did after the Hot Boys days, going into like Show Me What You Got freestyle, when he just completely switched up and was like, oh, and was like, oh.
I mean, you can't fool the city, man, they know what's up. Those chains make close, they go drive on you.
You know, so I think that year is coming up for all 3 of us, where it's time to see, you know, are we capable of, you know,
y'all better play it safe. Whoa, chop on.
Secretly, Keem's mom, Drake, and the blonde girl as his own dark big 3. When Kendrick said, fuck the big 3 and it's just big me, that's a double. In Drake's twisted interpretation, mother equals Keem's mom and the blonde.
GSP, motherfucker, the big 3. It's just big me, nigga.
Drake left standing alone after killing the others. And that's why Kendrick placed a song called You at track number 6 on To Pimp a Butterfly. It's just you and your inflated ego, not any real big 3. Wild freestyle, The Secret.
Hey, K-Dot.
Yeah.
Can we get it how we used to get it, like when Top had the red charger?
It's a super layered response to Back and Charged Up. Most people heard it as a flex record. It's a trap built inside the title. Look at the word wow visually. The letters form a specific image.
Oh man. Not again.
Drake is the O. Ho. 0. The hollow center between 2 women. You can flip the title left to right and it still reads wow. If W equals win, you get win, ho, win. The West Coast wins on both sides, with Drake as the ho in the middle. 2 W's equal 2 women, back to back on a ho. Flip the title again and read it as mom. From left to right or right to left, mom is still mom. Baby Keem's mom encoded into the title itself. Money, ho, money, back to back. Drake's entire operating pattern. Money, ho, money. Then 2 of Drake's industry minions drop band for band with a chorus. We can go band for band / fuck that. We can go M for M.
We can go band for band. Fuck that. We can go M for M.
Most people don't want to hear this, but a significant portion of your favorite rappers have under-the-table arrangements with Drake. That infrastructure is part of what makes all of this possible.
You know what nobody tells you when you have a kid or buy a home? You should have a will of trust. And LegalZoom is one of the best places to get one. When I realized I needed a will, I had so many questions. Where do I start? How much is it going to cost? How and where do I make one? What if I need to change something down the line? A friend recommended LegalZoom, which offers several affordable options for wills and trusts based on what you need. Whether you have kids or pets, if you want to handle things on your own, or work with an attorney. For something as important as my family's future, I decided to work with an attorney, all for a price that was well within my budget. I was surprised at how easy, fast, and thorough it was to work with LegalZoom. When you need a legal hand, turn to LegalZoom. Start your will or trust today. LegalZoom.
This settlement check completely changed my life, and it came from a car accident I almost forgot about. I'm honestly shaking as I record this. I never imagined something this big could come from an accident that felt so small at the time. If you've been in any kind of vehicle accident in the past 2 years, even if you think it was minor, even if you were just a passenger, you might be entitled to far more than you realize. Here's my story. I was stopped at a red light when, bam, a distracted driver slammed into me from behind. My neck felt a little stiff, but the car seemed okay. We exchanged info and I drove home. Big mistake. Over the next few weeks, the pain got worse. I started missing work. My car developed issues I hadn't noticed right away. The insurance company tossed me a tiny offer and basically said,
The release date, July 7th, and the bombing connection. Charged Up dropped on July 7th. July 7th. On July 7th, 2005, Islamist terrorists carried out 4 coordinated suicide bombings on London's public transport system during the morning rush hour.
Eerie footage of the devastation wrought by the 2005 London bombings has been shown in public for the first time. The inquest into the deaths of 52 people was shown video of underground trains and a bus, all blown apart by suicide bombers.
4 bombs, trains and a bus, packed with hydrogen peroxide and pepper. 52 people dead across 18 nationalities. Nearly 800 injured. That is the 7/7 bombing. Kendrick connects this entire coded war of numbers in King Kunta. The Yam brought it out of Richard Pryor. Yams as power, drugs, anger, and lust. Richard Pryor set himself on fire while freebasing cocaine.
Comedian Richard Pryor once set himself on fire during a freebasing cocaine incident. In 1980, Pryor accidentally ignited himself while freebasing, resulting in severe burns over half of his body. The incident was both horrifying and life-changing for Pryor, who later incorporated the experience into his stand-up comedy. It's a stark reminder that even the funniest people can have incredibly dark and challenging moments in their lives.
The flames equal the Vegas taxi explosion. The cocaine equals the drug Drake used to lace Keem's mom. Manipulated Bill Clinton with desires. Yams as legs. Bill and Monica as cheating and lying under oath. Drake getting away with crimes against an American woman, framed through the language of political scandal. I did some charity today for the kids. I did some charity today for the kids. Kendrick makes Drake super upset. His mom and the blonde before killing them. And after Drake eventually realizes he's committed poetic justice again, he starts scrolling for charity. God's plan in Florida, helping disabled and poor people. Not as redemption, but as mockery. But I'm used to it because all y'all charity cases.
But I'm used to it because all y'all charity cases.
Judaism is a religion that emphasizes the importance of life. And chai, like chai, is a Hebrew word that means life. It consists of 2 letters in the Hebrew alphabet. Chet and Yud, 30, are often given in multiples of 18. Symbolically, giving these gifts may be referred to as giving the gift of life. Jews also wear chai symbols around their neck. It's a reminder of the importance of life and encouragement to act as a good, faithful, ethical person who cherishes life. Chai is also the root for a famous Hebrew toast that you've probably heard, l'chaim, to life.
I'm on my worst behavior. Don't you ever get it fucked up.
Charity becomes chai-riddy when you break it apart. Chair, the act of cutting Keem's mom's legs off. Chai in Jewish culture means life. vitality, and spiritual well-being, worn as a symbol of ethical living and the sacred value of existence. Riddy from Rita, meaning pearl, tradition, or rite. Drake wears a pearl necklace with an X after he learns what the words he's been rapping actually mean.
At the back, I got the drink in me going bad to back.
Pick your hero or villain.
Pearls come from the ocean. Chai Riddy is Kendrick telling Drake through his own mouth, life is sacred, and even if you hide a mother and her unborn children in the ocean, they are still pearls behind heavenly gates. All y'all stare in my face in hopes you could be the replacement.
All y'all stare in my face, I hope you could be the replacement.
Kendrick speaking via Drake. TDE brothers. Furious, knowing Drake could have gone after any of them directly instead of targeting an innocent woman with no stake in the rap beef. Niggas is snitching on us without no interrogation.
Niggas are snitching on us without no interrogation.
Kendrick making Drake confess to tipping off police to set up the Las Vegas car explosion and sending Baby Keem's dad to prison for 20 years without sufficient evidence.
20 years long, I never had dad, but that was I'm getting 20 million off the record just to off these records, nigga, that's a record. 20 million, that's not enough. You must have pushed it up.
Drake snitched without anyone having to ask him a single question. I stay silent because we at war, and I'm very patient.
I stay silent because we at war, and I'm very patient.
/ Six God is watching, I just hope you're prepared to face him.
Six God is watching, I just hope you're prepared to face him.
/ I'm charged up.
Whoever they are, you know what to do, spiders?
You can sell on your website, Amazon, and beyond. We ship your orders, powered by Amazon's logistics network. Amazon Shipping. You sell it, we ship it.
Charged up.
Charged up repeated twice. Team's mom and the blonde. 2 bodies, 2 charges. Kendrick squabbling up, not down. Green light versus red light. First 2. Newshead, Newsenberg, and bending backbones. Wow, I'm honored that you think this is staged. / flattered, man. In fact, I'm amazed.
Wow, I'm honored that you think this is staged. I'm flattered, man. In fact, I'm amazed.
Kendrick has Drake crown himself because the Vegas shooting and explosion was described in news reports exactly like a Hollywood movie.
It was right here on the Vegas Strip where 3 people were killed in what many are calling a drive-by shooting made for the movies.
This is another poetic justice style staged script from Kendrick, making Drake be his own indictment of perfect start to the summer. Man, this shit is a doozy.
The perfect start to the summer, man. This shit is a doozy.
Doozy is to Duesenberg, the legendary luxury and racing car brand. Enormous and powerful, the top tier of his era. Drake putting Team's mom in the air at the top, and dropping her as punishment for Kendrick's elevation. Doozy means outstanding, extreme, historically linked to Duesenberg. It's a doozy, meaning it's incredible. That perfect start to summer equals heat, fire, explosion. Las Vegas, 2013. Etymologists trace doozy back to daisy, a first-rate thing. Kendrick flips it into pushing up daisies, death.
Pretty much the lady, now Miss Daisy, so lazy. There's a little big got some space, hot and fast, it's in the shade.
There's in Miss Daisy entry, and the duck visuals Drake uses in his trolling. This shit a twist in the movie, but don't jump to conclusions.
This shit a twist in the movie, but don't jump to conclusions.
The Vegas explosion is the twist. The twist is not metaphorical here. Drake literally bending the 2 women's backbones into C shapes and twisting them together to make them.
Need a my little girl, you got a little part. G60, just they trying to do at me. G60, be up to Tossy.
BCCC. C as in sea, as in ocean. You boys are getting into your feelings on me. You should embrace it. This could be one of our realest moments.
You boys are getting into your feelings on me. Never you, never you. Should embrace it. This could be one of our realest moments.
You boys. Bent spines shaped like U's. Embrace it as literally enfolding, hugging, enclosing. Drake tying and sawing the women together. That's where family ties, elements, and mob ties all
Mob ties, I swear we like a bitch with 5 sisters and 5 cousins. Family, all bad.
Okay, the flows start to feel familiar, don't it? Secondhand embarrassment.
Look at this card. Not the artwork, not the Pokemon. Look at the number on the label of the slab. Because that number might be the difference between a $5,000 card and a $50,000 card. That number decides what buyers pay, sellers ask, collectors chase, and what investors believe they own. And the entire hobby has been trained to trust it. We trust it when we buy. We trust it when we sell. And we trust it when a card's value jumps thousands of dollars just because there's a 10 on the label instead of a 9. But here's the question that nobody wants to ask. What happens when the company assigning that number is no longer just the referee? What happens when the referee controls the scoreboard, the pricing data, the competitors, and maybe even some of the cards? Because once you look at PSA's history, this stops being a simple grading thing. It becomes a question about power, a question about incentives, and a question about whether one of the most important companies in the card hobby has become too big for collectors to question. And the warning signs were there from the very first card that PSA ever graded. Not the 1,000th card, not the 1,000,000th card, but the very first one. By the end of this video, you may never look at a PSA label the same way again. But before you find out why, we're doing another giveaway. This time, it's a Prismatic Evolution PTB, so keep watching to figure out how you can win this one. Before PSA existed, the card market was basically built on ranks. One dealer might try to sell a card as in near mint condition, while another dealer might say that same card is actually excellent condition. And a buyer might disagree with both of them, and that was it. There was no universal referee. There was no slab, no cert number, no label telling the market, this is what this card's real condition is. If you were buying an expensive card, especially from someone you didn't know, you were completely relying on trust. And trust is a tricky thing with an object that you worth thousands of dollars. Back then, a card could be trimmed, cleaned, or altered to make it look better than it really was. That was the problem that PSA was supposed to solve. And in 1991,
the game of like, man, I mean, yeah, you got it.
Loading the Missouri and Mississippi rivers is like
That's great, but can you ask your friend to stop digging into the green? I can ask. Only pay?
Professional sports authenticators entered the market with a simple promise, that they would be the neutral third. They would authenticate the card, grade the condition, seal it in a tamper-evident holder, and give the market certainty. And honestly, the idea was brilliant. That card slab became physical trust that you could hold in your hand. But that entire system depended on one thing, the belief that the grade was honest. Because PSA was never selling plastic, they were selling confidence. And that brings us to the first card that PSA ever graded. The card that should have been the cleanest, most reviewed card in the company's history. But instead, it became the first warning sign. The first card that PSA ever graded was a 1909 Kona Swag. Cert number 0000001. This was not just another card. This was the card. the most famous baseball card in the world, and PSA graded it an 8. That is still near mid, and that grade instantly gave PSA credibility because collectors thought this company can handle the biggest cards in the world. But years later, the story got more complicated. Bill Hughes, the grader who examined the card, reportedly said he knew that the card had been cut from a strip. In other words, he was saying that that card had been trimmed, and PSA graded it anyway. Think about what that means for a second. The very first card that PSA ever graded, the one that launched the company in the modern grading era, carried the exact same controversy that PSA was created to eliminate. Now, some people are going to say, well, that happened over 30 years ago. Why does it matter today? That's a fair question. And it wouldn't matter as much if it was the only issue. But it wasn't. Because as PSA grew, the stakes got bigger, the card market got bigger, and so did the money. Collectors stopped treating PSA like a grading service and started treating it more like the source of all truth. That's where this story gets dangerous. Because a mistake on a raw card is just an opinion. But a mistake inside a PSA slab becomes the market value. But before we get into the buyback controversies, the lawsuits, the alleged altered cards, and the monopoly concerns, you have to understand how PSA became so powerful that the entire hobby built itself around one label. When eBay exploded, the collectibles market changed forever. Before that, card collecting was more local. There were card shows, card shops, and dealers that everyone recognized. eBay made it possible for a collector in Tennessee to easily buy from somebody that was in California. A buyer in New York could bid against somebody that was in Japan, and that created a massive problem. How do you trust a card that you can't physically hold in your hands and see with your own eyes? That's where PSA became more than just a grading company. It became infrastructure. A PSA slab told buyers, you don't really need to trust the seller. You just need to trust the grade. The internet made the card market even bigger, and grading made the card market move even faster. A PSA 10 was easy to search, easy to compare, easy to price, and easy to sell. Instead of having to trust your own judgment when you're evaluating a card on the centering, the corners, edges, whether it has any whitening, and its authenticity, you just had to look at the number. A PSA 10 was the best. A PSA 9 was still strong. And a PSA 8 was clean but not perfect. And that made it easy for the market to understand the language. And the more people that used that language, the more powerful PSA became. That's how PSA became almost impossible to avoid. Not just by grading cards, but by becoming the default language of card value. And once that happened, PSA didn't just reflect the market, they started shaping it. A PSA 10 could sell for multiples of the same card in a PSA 9. Sometimes the difference was small, but sometimes it was absurd. That small difference sometimes meant thousands of dollars. So when people say it's just grading, they're missing the point. It's not just grading, it's price trading. And if one company can create that much price movement with a single number, every weakness in that company becomes a weakness in the entire company. And now I'm going to tell you how you can win Prismatic Evolution DTV. Like the video, subscribe to the channel, and tell me in the comments, do you think the Evolution cards from Prismatic or the ones from Evolving Skies are going to be worth 10 years from now? Leave Umbreon out of it, but all the other Evolutions. I'll use the YouTube random comment selector to pick a winner, and I'll announce it in the next video. And then, the pandemic boom hit. PSA wasn't just grading vintage cards anymore. They were grading everything. Modern Pokemon, sports cards, and they were doing thousands upon thousands of bulk submissions. Some of you might remember, but their backlog got so big, they had to pull the plug and suspend services on grading. People who had submitted their cards got stuck waiting for months. And then came one of the most disturbing details in the entire story. Joe Orlando, who was the CEO of Collectors Universe at the time, which owned PSA, spoke at an investor conference and said that in many cases, cards are graded in about 30 seconds. 30 seconds. A card could be worth $500 as a PSA 9.
Yes, Lord. You're live with Anderson Package. Let's talk so many moves. Hey, red light, baby. Blackpool, you trying to pay a scammer's rate too now? What's the move then? Pay with these. That's right. These is the way to pay.
Feel like your tooth sensitivity isn't severe enough to deal with? What if I told you Sensodyne has a fast and simple remedy? New Sensodyne Clinical Repair starts to repair sensitive areas of teeth after 60 seconds. I'm so excited to introduce this new product to patients. New Sensodyne Clinical Repair is absolutely amazing.
Big 9, or it could be worth 5,000 as a PSA 10. A vintage card moved by life-changing amounts of money by one grade bump. 30 seconds is less time than what most of us spend looking at a card to determine whether it's even centered. Now, that doesn't mean that every grade was wrong, but it does raise some serious questions. Can a system built on speed really deliver the precision that collectors think they're paying for? If those decisions are happening at scale, under immense pressure, then that question is unavoidable. Are collectors paying for certainty, or are they paying for the illusion of certainty? And this is where PSA's biggest problem starts to appear. Because grading mistakes are one thing, but conflicts of interest are another. What happens when the company that grades cards also buys cards? What happens when that same company owns the pricing data, absorbs its competitors, and benefits from the value that its own grades create? That's when it stops being a grading debate and becomes more powerful. In 2021, Collectors Holdings acquired PSA's parent company, Collectors Universe, for $850 million. A company getting bought isn't a scandal. Companies get acquired all the time. But PSA wasn't just any company. By that point, PSA labels were tied directly to card values. The PSA 10 Premium had become one of the most powerful forces in card collecting. PSA was supposed to be a neutral third party. They were supposed to step in and be the referee with no team. But if the referee is tied to grading, buying, selling, pricing data, and competitor consolidation, the role changes. It starts to look less like a referee and more like the game itself. That doesn't mean that every PSA employee is corrupt, and it doesn't mean that every grade is fake. But collectors have to stop acting like PSA is immune from business incentives. PSA isn't a charity, it is a business. And businesses usually respond to incentives. If the market rewards speed, volume, control, and PSA 10 premiums, then collectors have to ask whether the system was built around accuracy first or profit first. And some of the biggest concerns didn't start with conspiracy theorists. It started with collectors doing the one thing that PSA was supposed to do, and that's look closely at the cards. In 2019, collectors online started noticing something strange. Certain high-value cards that had passed through PSA didn't look quite right. Edges looked too sharp, the corners too clean, and the measurements didn't seem right. They started seeing cards that they believed had been trimmed, recolored, or restored in some way before they were submitted to PSA. So this group of collectors started documenting card by card, image by image, sale by sale. Eventually, the number of cards that people identified reportedly reached into the hundreds, with their collective value being well over $1 million. This wasn't a small issue. This was a huge breach of trust, because altered cards are what the grading companies are supposed to catch. If someone can take a lower grade card, alter it, resubmit it, receive a higher grade, and then sell it for a massive premium, this grading slab doesn't protect the buyer anymore. Now, to be fair, no grading company does that. Humans make mistakes, and some alterations can be extremely difficult to catch. Any system handling millions of cards every single month is going to have some misses. But that defense only goes so far. Because when collectors pay PSA for detect condition and authenticity problems, PSA can't by default just say, we're only human anytime something serious slips through. Not when buyers are relying on that slab to be what they were told to be. And this pattern keeps coming back. PSA's value is built on trust. And when that trust is questioned, collectors are just expected to move on. The Wagner controversy, move on. Alternate charging slabs, move on. 30-second grading, backlogs, conflicts of interest, move on. And collectors, they usually move on. And that's because PSA slabs still sell. And it's also because a PSA 10 still commands a huge premium over its competitors. The market keeps rewarding the label even when the trust behind that label keeps getting weaker. PSA didn't become this powerful just because they wanted power. They got this powerful because collectors gave it to them. Every time someone paid a big premium for a PSA 10 without really inspecting it and asking harder questions, the system got stronger. And now we get to one of the strangest PSA controversies yet, because this one doesn't involve 100-year-old baseball cards. It involves modern Pokemon. And it asks one of the most important questions in this whole video. Can the company that grades your cards also buy it from you and then benefit if that grade changes? A collector reportedly submitted over 30 identical cards to PSA for grading. Most of the cards that he submitted came back as PSA 9s. PSA then offered to buy several of those cards back from him at PSA 9 values at around $35 a card. And the collector accepted. At first, that sounds simple. Cards were graded, PSA made an offer, the collector accepted them, end of story. Except it wasn't the end of the story. That same collector later checked the PSA registry, and he noticed something just a little fishy. Some of those same cert numbers, the same cards that PSA had purchased back from him at PSA 9 values, reportedly now appeared as PSA 10s. And this is where the problem becomes obvious. A PSA 9 and a PSA 10 are not the same product. On some cards, the difference is small, but on some cards, that difference is huge. So if PSA buys a card at one grade, and then that same card becomes a higher grade under PSA's control, then collectors are naturally going to start asking some questions. And they should ask questions. PSA assigns the grade, they control the certifications, they can conduct internal reviews, they can buy cards, and they can benefit from the market value attached to those grades. This is the conflict. Even if PSA has an explanation, even if a senior reviewer upgraded those cards during an internal quality control, even if every step followed an internal process, the optics are absolutely terrible. Because the company is no longer just grading cards for its customers. It's actively participating in the market around the cards that it grades. And once that happens, who's the grade serving? The collector, the buyer, the market, or the company who controls the whole process? This is why conflicts of interest matter. Not because every conflict proves wrongdoing, but because conflicts erode confidence. And in a grading company, confidence is everything. The plastic slab isn't the product. The label isn't even the product. It's the trust. That's what you're paying for. And once trust starts cracking, that slab looks very different. But even this doesn't fully explain why this matters right now. The reason this matters is because PSA may not be just the biggest grading card company. It may be part of a larger structure that controls the entire grading market. And when one company controls the market, collectors lose the one thing that keeps every company honest: competition. For years, PSA had competition. Beckett was different, SGC was different, CGC was different, and now TAG is different. You used to hear collectors arguing over which companies had stricter grading standards, which slab's label looked cooler, which slab was going to hold its value better long term, and which standard they trusted most. That competition is important. If PSA raised their prices too high,
With Robinhood Gold, earn 3.35% APY with high-yield cash. Plus, get a 3% match on IRA contributions, so you can make the most of your money. Sign up today for 30 days free, then $5 a month.
people had other companies that they could go to. If PSA's lead times got too ridiculous, it gave competitors a chance to gain some market share. If someone felt like PSA had made a mistake with the grade on their card, it allowed them to submit the card to another company to challenge the grade. That competition creates pressure. Pressure forces accountability. But the grading market, it's been consolidating. Collectors Holdings acquired PSA, then SGC. Then, as most of you know, they recently announced that they were acquiring Beckett. And that's where everyone's alarm bells started ringing. Because when one ownership group controls most of the major grading brands, it changes the structure of grading within the hobby. One company can then influence grading standards, turnaround time expectations, pricing, population data, and slab liquidity across multiple brands. And this is why antitrust concerns started showing up. Because a grading company isn't like a normal collectible business. It doesn't sell just a product. It helps define the value of everyone else's products. That's a different kind of company. Imagine if one company became the Experian or the Equifax of collectibles, deciding authenticity, condition, value, and trust for almost the entire market. At some point, it's not about whether that company makes mistakes. The problem is that the market has no easy way to punish them for those mistakes. Because where else are people going to go? That's how monopoly power works. It doesn't survive because everyone loves it. It survives because it becomes too inconvenient for people to leave. And that's the trap that collectors are stuck in right now. People get mad at PSA. They complain about PSA. They say they're done with PSA. But then those same people still submit their cards to PSA again and again because they still have the highest resale value. The market continues to reward the thing that it says that it distrusts. And as long as that keeps happening, then nothing is going to change. Most people watch a video like this, get mad for 10 minutes, maybe leave a comment, then they'll go submit their next batch to PSA anyway. That's human nature, and no one can blame anyone for doing it. PSA is convenient, their slabs are extremely liquid, and they're the name that everybody knows. Changing behavior is hard, but you don't have to pretend that PSA doesn't exist to be smarter about it. You just have to automatically stop treating them as trustworthy. If you're buying a PSA slab, still inspect the card. Compare the grade to the card's condition. Don't buy the number without looking at what's really inside. If you're buying an expensive vintage card, research the card's history. If there's prior sales images of the card, go check them out. And if you submit to PSA, understand the risk. Read the terms. Know what's covered. Know what's not. Don't assume your card is protected just because they're so large. If you're new to grading, then compare your options. Maybe PSA is still the right choice for most cards. Maybe it's not. The point isn't that every PSA slab is bad. The point is that blind trust is. And right now, this hobby has way too much blind trust. We see a PSA 10 on the label and we turn our brains off. We see that red and white label and we assume the market is spoken. Slabs are only as trustworthy as the companies who are pumping them. Try to use the slab as one piece of information, not the whole truth. PSA was created out of necessity because the hobby had a dishonesty problem. That's the irony here. The company that became the solution for the hobby's trust problem is now surrounded by the biggest trust questions in the hobby. And those questions are not going away. How much confidence should a collector place in a grade? How much power should a company have over a market? Should a company be able to buy the cards that it grades? Should one ownership group control multiple major grading brands? Should the market treat a PSA 10 as truth when the difference between a PSA 9 and a PSA 10 can be subjective, fast, and financially massive? These are not small questions. These are questions that determine what the next era of grading looks like. Because Pokemon is only getting bigger, the money is only getting bigger, the cards are only getting more expensive, and when that much money is involved, trust can't just be given. Trust has to be earned. The number on the slab matters, but the integrity behind the number matters more. And if we as collectors forget that, the slab stops being protection and just becomes marketing. So here's the question that I want you to answer honestly in the comments. Do you still trust PSA? Not does PSA have the strongest resale value? Because in many cases, the answer is yes. The question I'm asking is completely different. Do you trust the system behind the number? And it's not just PSA. The deeper I look into this hobby, the more I realize the dishonesty problem is bigger than just one company, one grading label, or one scandal. So keep an eye on the channel because this is not the last video I'm making. There are more uncomfortable parts of this hobby that people do not want to talk about. And we're going to talk about it. Because if collectors are going to spend real money in this hobby, then they deserve to understand the actual game that they're playing in. The grade on that label may decide the price, but trust determines whether that grade means anything at all. And before we get out of here, we're going to announce the winner from the last video. And the winner of the Prismatic Evolutions Booster Bundle is Wymusin. Yamusin? I'm not really sure how you say it, but either way, congratulations. I'm putting my email address in the description of the video, so shoot me an email and I'll get this thing sent right out to you. So don't forget, keep stacking, protect your assets, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye.
Tracking your delivery to the guided setup. With Google Spiders, get a world-leading internet with the latest Wi-Fi technology, all included on fiber.google.com. Check your address to get started. If you make custom t-shirts, you most want them done fast. Including my son, who just joined the soccer team today. He only plays outside. Luckily, I use Jiffy.com, so I get everything. Shirts, designs, transfers as fast as tomorrow. So no more waiting days for shirts to be delivered. No more late nights individually reading each design. No more missed client orders.
I like football now.
But that's okay. Jiffy transfers are so fast and affordable. Jiffy transfers, fast and free to pickiest clients.
the duck.
Can't keep me down for long.
Control lost.
Lots of people are saying that Pokemon's in a bad place right now. When we were kids, we just traded cards we didn't like for cards we did like. But today, people have businesses, investments, and multi-million-dollar empires built on Pokemon cards. I've heard some collectors say that they're leaving the hobby. They don't want it anymore. They say it's a bad time to start. So, how did we get here?
For sure.
We now celebrate February 27th Pokemon. This was the release date of the games in 1996.
What?
But it was later that year, October 5th, that the first trading cards were released to the public via for magazine. Inside the magazine, you could find a Jigglypuff card and a Pikachu card. A few days later, on the 20th, the first ever expansion set was released. This set had 102 cards, and yes, this includes the Charizard. Now, the first cards mistake was quickly corrected, and the symbols were added. Now, this probably meant nothing in 1996, but today, collectors have divided the original cards into two camps, referring to the initial as no rarity. Don't forget about no rarity cards, because they play an important role later, but more sets kept coming out. Pocket Monsters was a huge success. Outside of the mainline sets, more were developed for vending machines, there were jumbo-sized promo cards, and illustration contests, which birthed some of the most sought-after cards to this day, like the Pokemon Illustrator. We'll talk more about the Illustrator, but what you need to know now is that only 39 copies were originally distributed to contest winners. Today, that number is estimated to really be 41 or more, but it's still incredibly rare. Ever since its release, it's been a grail to collectors. Each Pocket Monster can utilize one or more energy types in the game: fire, grass, water, psychic, fighting, lightning, and colorless. This made for an interesting rock, paper, scissors style strategy building and deck building. But all of this was still contained in the little country of Japan. We had in Gary, saw what was going on and started importing cards into North America. He would later become a large public figure in the hobby, more exciting of what Pokemon would become to the West, right around the corner. And would honestly change the course of history in 1999. Not bad. Magic the Gathering started back in 1993, developed by Wizards of the Coast. That's why Wizards already had distribution channels relationships, basically owns the collectible card game in the United States. Signing a deal with Wizards was a no-brainer in 2007. So Wizards became the official distribution partner for Pocket Monsters, now being sort of rebranded as Pokemon. The very first Wizards Pokemon cards were handed out free at free vending machines. This was a gaming and software convention. In early 1999, some more products were rolled out along with the first expansion, the base set. The base set had the same 102 cards as the Japanese version, but also a handful of changes. Wizards had redesigned the cards for the Western market. Bright yellow borders, a fresh design on the backside, a new call pattern, and first edition stamp. This stamp allowed Wizards to tap into the collector's market. Only a limited amount were printed before it was released to production. But they ended up capturing the attention of collectors for another reason. It's not all Wizards' fault, but they made a lot of it. Each set, like Phase, Gunk, Fossil, and the others, were little errors with small changes that created these variants. The first edition stamp worked, but people also started collecting the cards that had factory defects, design errors, and other mistakes. For example, this base set Raichu was accidentally printed with a pre-release stamp. It seemed like a small, inconsequential mistake at the time, but it would one day become a brand, like the Illustrator. By the way, the Illustrator at this time was breaking records with a $22,000 sale. Don't forget it. So, I wanted to explain something for you. For a hype cycle to occur, outsiders need to be brought into Pokemon. There have to be new people coming in for the franchise to grow. Pokemon can lose the biggest, craziest set ever, but if only Pokemon fans see it, it doesn't expand the audience. In 1999 to 2000, Pokemania was the first time we saw a real-life example of this phenomenon, but definitely not the last.
Mind the exploding plasma! You'll have to keep fighting until we have a winner!
When we first started working, I'm checking it every day. I'm like, I don't know, is this the
told
right
you have to check it every day.
What made you get into doing what you do?
This is it. It's an opportunity to like help people.
That's what made me feel more comfortable too, because it's like this guy really cares about my goals and you can help me work toward it.
Time we saw a real-life example of this phenomenon, but definitely not the last. So far, the original series only had Generation 1 Pokemon, but it was about to change with the Neo series. This series was comprised of only 4 sets: Neo Genesis, Discovery, Revelation, and Destiny. Yes, I constantly get this mixed up. This was the introduction of not only Generation 2 Pokemon, but 2 new energy types, Dark and Metal. Pokemon like Umbreon, Houndoom, Tyranitar, Steelix, Skarmory, and Scizor, or Scizor, who all said Scizor when I was a kid, were big hits that utilized Dark and Metal energy. Baby Pokemon were also introduced here. These were Pokemon that could evolve into basic Pokemon. Think Pichu, Smoochum, or Magby. This set was based on Pokemon Gold and Silver and did a great job of making it feel like an adaptation, with tool cards being similar to held items, for example. The third set of this series, Revelation, was kind of important. It was a turning point. This set introduced the first shining Pokemon cards, Magikarp and Gyarados. And the next set, I think Destiny, gave us 8 more. But the Japanese version of Revelation, Awakening Legends, was the first set to be released by the Pokemon Company. You see, Pokemon started out as 3 companies: Game Freak, who developed the games, Creatures, who were in charge of the merchandise and extended IP, and Nintendo, who basically backed the project in exchange for exclusivity on the Game Boy. But yeah, by the late 2000s, they decided to evolve into one single company, and each owned 1/3. But one middleman would have to be eliminated first. The E series starts with Expedition, the first of only 3 sets, and let's just jump into it. The cards got a massive redesign with plenty of little adjustments, but most importantly, these big, fat yellow borders. What you see here and here are dot codes. These cards are compatible with Nintendo's e-reader device for the Game Boy Advance. The dot codes contain data that can unlock mini-games, Pokédex data, or other goodies. It's pretty fun, actually, and you sometimes have to scan a small collection of cards in order to unlock the prize. The booster packs got downsized, going from 11 cards to only 9 cards, and the first edition stamp was removed. That's right, no more stamps. But something else, something bigger was happening at this time. Pokemon was struggling. First of all, no one had e-readers. The product was not at all successful in the West, so this new gimmick was dead in the water, and kids just didn't like the new design. Now, I don't remember hating it, but I remember not wanting e-readers because they felt cluttered and weird. Also, Pokemon was naturally coming down off its Pokemania high. Because of these factors, Wizards printed fewer cards, and the e-reader units were discontinued within 2 years. Over in Japan, the BS series, which was exclusively Japanese, introduced the new design and, ironically, a first edition stamp. The e-readers, well, they were bigger in Japan. Kids wanted them, and they used them. It got newer versions and continued support for years. Then they got another exclusive E-series set called Pokemon Web. This was a reprint set with cards from the original series, but updated with the new E-series card design. Pretty freaking cool, to be honest. They called it Pokemon Web because the packs could only be purchased online through the new mysterious internet. Arclopolis was the next international set and introduced Crystal-type Pokemon, which gave Pokemon the new ability to adapt to another type based on its attached energy. Some more Crystal Pokemon were added in the last set, Skyridge, so that makes 9 Crystal cards in total. Now, Skyridge is quite special. Remember how the Pokemon Company was formed and took over the distribution in Japan? Well, Wizards' contract was coming to an end, but even months ahead, they knew. They saw what was happening and they couldn't help but notice the change in demeanor from their Japanese partners. Skyridge got one single print run. Even though the whole E-Series was being printed less, Skyridge was cut short because the Pokemon Company wanted to kick Wizards out and take over. But listen, this wasn't a good thing or a bad thing. Wizards was kind of fumbling the distribution of Pokemon cards, but they did a really good job at running game nights called the Pokemon League. And if you look back at old forums and letters between Wizards employees and the players, it's obvious that they really cared about us. But as a result, Skyridge cards, and honestly all E-Series cards, are ridiculously expensive today, but also kind of extremely cool. Many collectors think they're the best looking Pokemon cards ever, which is ironic. Oh, and Skyridge was the last set to have a Kadabra card. Kadabra's name in Japanese is Yungaru, which sounds an awful lot like Yurigeller, or Urigeller. Geller is this guy. He's a performer, a self-claimed psychic, and he invented the whole spoon-bending thing. So when he saw Yungaru, a psychic, and he invented the whole spoon-bending thing. So when
DJ Academics and Charlamagne the God are officially at war, and day one did not go well for Charlamagne the God. Academics is digging up a lot of disturbing things that make Charlamagne the God look crazy. Honestly, Charlamagne the God brought this upon himself, so he ran to Academics to gossip about how he knows that there's people behind the scenes who are rallying and galvanizing to put false allegations on Academics, and Lauren LaRosa is one of those people. Rock Nation is the orchestrator of this investigation, and they're pulling in, let's say, Lauren LaRosa, Jeremy Hecht, and other people. They're pulling everybody in to go at Academics. So Charlamagne tells Academics this, and Academics is looking at Charlamagne a little weird, like, thank you for telling me, but, like, you know this is going on, and those are your homies, and you're not doing anything about it? He feels like Charlamagne the God is playing 50-50. And with the war being waged and people going at Academics, especially from Charlamagne the God's side of things, Academics is like, bruh, there's no bystander. I'm going at everybody involved over there, including you, if that's where you stand.
You know they say heavy's the head that wears the crown. They put out the hip-hop media list 4 times now. I'm batting a pretty good rate. Twice at number 1. What's the problem? Well, I'll tell you what the problem is. The severe belts that now, since most of those guys who used to feel like they're just kind of outside the fray. Like, there's just, I don't have to like act why you have been streaming, because I'm watching like these